Hello, and welcome back to the Audio Elgin podcast. This is Abigail Fritz, and today I'll be speaking with the president of Elgin's Chamber of Commerce, Gina Carter. Gina is going to be telling us about the role played by the Chamber of Commerce and about her favorite parts of Elgin's history. Could you start by introducing yourself and telling me a little about what you do?
I'm Gina Carter, and I've lived in Elgin for 30 years. I am the president of the Elgin Chamber of Commerce. We do lots of things. We are a membership-driven organization. We also serve as the visitor center for the city of Elgin. And our office is in the Freight Depot, which is the oldest building in Elgin. It was built in 1872. And each day we greet visitors that come to Elgin. We share information about Elgin, relocation, those kind of things. We deal with our business members. We promote businesses. We promote organizations. We also do lots of festivals and events.
What brought you to Elgin?
I moved to Elgin 30 years ago. My husband and I moved to Elgin, and he originally is from Elgin. He's a sixth-generation Elginite and grew up here and lived here. His family, the Carters, were here back in the 1860s, and they moved here from Alabama after the Civil War and came, and they had land out on FM 3000. They lived there. His grandfather was the first teacher in Elgin. And the land is still there. They have a family cemetery on their property.
What were your first impressions of the town?
I liked Elgin. Elgin was a small town. I grew up in a small town out in West Texas, a town called Ballinger. So there was a lot of similarities there. And of course, I liked it because my husband's family was here, and we had lots of family members, and it was just a special place to live and to be and visit at the time.
How has Elgin changed in the time you've been here?
Definitely the growth, being at the Chamber of Commerce, been there for 17 years. And so even in those 17 years at the Chamber, we've seen lots of businesses come and move to town, and it's much different when we first moved here. Our Main Street definitely has improved. I mean, in those 17 years, being now a national Main Street city, lots of renovations and activities there. So definitely different since I moved here 30 years, but very much a great place to live and to visit.
When visitors come to see you, what do they ask about? What stories do you tell them?
The first question usually is, first of all, why is Elgin pronounced Elgin and not Elgin? And we explain that Elgin was named for Robert Morris Elgin, who was one of the railroad administrators at the time. And so that's always a conversation starter. The agricultural part is always interesting, and the different immigrants that came from all over, the Swedish, the African-American community, the German community. There's just so many different diverse cultures that we have here, and that's always interesting to be a community this size that has so much diversity. And back when people were settling, different groups were coming in, and it was a welcoming place, definitely, and I think that was a big part of it as well. A lot of people that first come in to the depot, they're interested in railroad history. And so, of course, that's always a conversation starter. And then we encourage them to come over to the Passenger Museum, and that houses Historical Association. So visitors come for that. Of course, we always send people downtown. Downtown's a great place with lots of shops and things to do. But of course, you can't come to Elgin without going to experience the Elgin sausage. Since we are the sausage capital of Texas, we encourage people to try out one of the local barbecue and sausage restaurants.
Could you tell me about some of your favorite landmarks or historic places in Elgin?
Definitely, I think the depots are very important, and I'm lucky enough that I get to work in the oldest building in Elgin, and that was the Freight Depot, built in 1872. I love this museum, the Union Depot Museum. I think that's important. I think it's great that we now have it as a museum. We have many historic churches in our community, and those are all very important and make up our city, and those are great. Lots of history there as well. And of course, downtown, just to walk downtown and to see all the brick that is used in our community, being the brick capital of Southwest. At one time in our history, there was, I believe, 9 different brick companies here in town.
You mentioned that you work in the Freight Depot. Could you tell me about the restoration process for that building?
Sure. So through the years, the Freight Depot was several different things. It was course, the freight depot, and then it stayed vacant for a while. I believe, it was purchased by individuals. There was an insurance company there. There was some other office space, and through the years, it just was vacant. And 1990 is when Elgin became a Main Street city, and at that time, to become a Main Street city, that is a program with the state of Texas. And there was definitely lots of empty buildings and buildings that were needed repairs. And during that time, there was kind of a motivation or enthusiasm to kind of restore and to bring our downtown back to make it what it is today, basically, to work on those buildings. And it truly was in the late 1990s, a local group of citizens came together to refurbish that museum and came into part of it and made it stable where it was able to be used. And then after, at that point, the Main Street Board and the City of Elgin came together to actually to restore it, and it became a city property. And then about year 2001, I believe it was, when the Chamber moved into that property.
Earlier you spoke about the role played by the Chamber of Commerce and some Elgin festivals and other events. Can you tell me about those?
So Juneteenth festival is always held in June, and of course that celebrates the Juneteenth date in the state of Texas when slaves found out in Texas that they were free, and so our African American community celebrates that event. The Hogeye Festival, of course, is celebrated downtown. It's a street festival. It's held the fourth Saturday in October. The big one is the Western Days Festival. That's a big part of Elgin's history. We just celebrated 50 years of having the Western Days Festival. That's always held in the summer. We have the Hogeye Festival, lots of other smaller events throughout the year. So the Chamber, we work very closely with the City of Elgin and planning events. Lots of things going on. Elgin's definitely a community that has lots of events.
I'd like to say a big thank you to Gina for being here with me today. If you enjoyed hearing about Elgin's history, you can learn more by checking out the rest of the Audio Elgin podcast, or by visiting us at the Elgin Depot Museum, which is located on Elgin's Main Street and is open Wednesdays through Fridays from 10 to 2.